Welcome to LifeTalk with Mariette. I am Mariette. This show is about the life lessons that shape us, what I've learned, what I'm still learning, and how we grow through challenge, awareness, and purpose. I will share personal insights to motivate and inspire you, and sometimes invite guests who do the same. At its heart, LifeTalk is about real stories, real growth, and meaningful connection. This is LifeTalk with Mariette. Motivational, inspirational, full of heart. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Life Talk with Mariette. I'm your host, Mariette Kammerer, life and business coach. Because I had to ask, curiosity isn't nosy, it's human. That's our topic tonight. The show is all about the stuff we wonder about, but don't always say it out loud. Let's get one thing straight right away. Curiosity is not the same as being nosy. Being nosy is about poking around where you don't belong, usually to judge, gossip, or control something. But being curious, that comes from a place of care, of wanting to understand, not assume. It's not what's going on with them, ? With a raised eyebrow, of course, the right one in my case. It's, I wonder what they're going through. That's a big difference. Let's meet our guest, Dr. Chris Gilbert, MD, PhD, and author of 10 books. On the web, it's drchrisgilbert.com. Good evening, Dr. Chris.
Good evening, Mariette. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure. And our good friend, Robert O'Donnell, CEO of SEO Marketing Experts, and on the web, SEO Marketing Experts. NYC.com. And before we get started, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Your mind needs more than a rest. It needs meaning. Read stories that uplift, question, and connect at thehealingmindmagazine.com. Curated with purpose, written with heart. 2 shows, 1 mission, real talk, real growth. Subscribe to the Business Champion Show and Life Talk with Mariette on YouTube. We ask what others won't, and we go where life gets real. YouTube is waiting. Some people scroll, other people wonder. If you're the second type, you'll love the healingmindmagazine.com. Curiosity, healing, life stories that make you pause and think. Back to you, Mariette.
Thank you, Robert. You're listening to Life Talk with Mariette. Our topic is because I had to ask. Curiosity isn't nosy, it's human. So let me tell you what curiosity says. I don't know everything, but I want to learn. I don't get it, but I'm willing to listen. It opens doors, builds bridges, and honestly, it makes life way more interesting. So if you ever stopped yourself from asking something just because it felt silly, strange, or too deep, this is your place. We ask about it here because we had to. So we're going to start with category 1, which is about the curiosity and the brain. And I'd like to bring Dr. Chris in. So with the question, is curiosity something we're born with or something we learn, Dr. Chris?
Oh, it's something that we are born with and something we learn also. And what's fascinating is what's happening in our brain. Do you know what's happening in our brain when we're curious? It's amazing. We have first our prefrontal cortex and our anterior cingulate cortex that detect gaps in our knowledge and tells us to investigate. And then we have a lot of dopamine coming on, secreted by the ventral tegmental area and the nucleus accumbens. They're both activated and they will make us feel motivated to learn something new. We will release dopamine, and dopamine is the reward chemical, and curiosity will be very pleasurable for us. Curiosity makes acquiring knowledge feel rewarding. And the brain treats learning something new as a pleasurable activity. And then what happens? What happens afterwards is that the hippocampus gets activated, which is critical for memory formation. So curiosity enhances learning. And this is why curiosity feels good. Our brain is literally designed to make learning exciting, and especially when they were children. The children are always excited to learn new things. This is by design.
Yes. So we're born with it, that the babies are naturally curious and that's how they explore the world. But over time, if curiosity isn't encouraged, it starts to fade. So that's an interesting finding. Um, why is that, Dr. Chris? That may sound like a dumb question, but I will ask it anyway. Why does curiosity fade when you're not using it?
Well, it's not a dumb question. It's actually a very good question. Why is it that children are more curious than adults? Why is that? And that's the thing about your children's brain or have much more neuroplasticity. So their brain are rapidly forming new connections. The kids are wired to explore, to learn the new language, to understand social rules, to adapt to the world. And the dopaminergic system, which is the rewards, is highly responsive in children, which makes novelty and learning especially rewarding. And also, the thing is that curiosity is very often encouraged in children, but in adults, much less. So as we get older, we're expected to know things, and question might not be welcomed anymore. So adults usually praise and reinforce curiosity in kids. They say, "Oh yeah, that's a great question." But as we get older, we're not praised anymore. And fear of being wrong increases with age. As people grow up, they become much more self-conscious and risk-averse. Uh, a- and curiosity involves not knowing something. And adults very often avoid situations where they might feel ignorant. They've got fear of being judged, fear of failure, fear of inefficiency, and that can make adults suppress their natural curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Back to you.
Thank you. Robert, I'd like to bring you in. And my question to you is, how often has your mom told you? Because little kids ask why about 500 times a day. How many times were you asking why per day? What you can remember, what your mom said.
Well, I know that I was definitely a curious kid, and now hearing what Dr. Chris says, it does make a lot of sense. And my mom, if she wasn't there to ask why, it was either my friends or the babysitter or whoever was taking care of me at the time. But, usually if I asked my mom why, she would say, look it up. Once I got to the age of at least reading, and we had a whole set of encyclopedia back in the day, if you remember the, 26 book volume of encyclopedia. So if I had a question, I was told to go look it up because she didn't know the answer to the questions I was asking. And so she couldn't really, it wasn't she was doing it to be mean or anything, but she didn't know why Saturn only came through, saw this way, and I was reading about this in science or something, and she didn't know any of those answers. But I do like to just say one thing about what Dr. Chris was saying is kids, curiosity is often encouraged until you get your hand caught in the cookie jar and you start exploring places you're not supposed to be exploring, and then you get in trouble or you fall down off the counter or something happens, and those negative times can then impact the child's future exploration and curiosity, because if they get negative feedback, unlike the great dopamine loop that Dr. Chris talks about, which makes sense again why learning is fun, usually is our chemical reaction to it. But if we do experience negative early on, just like she say in the adults, as you get older, if you get negative feedback, you don't want to then keep being curious. You'll just be quiet and sit in the corner and try to not, get called out or something. But I think that's obviously still not a healthy way to conduct adulthood activities. We should still encourage questioning things and encourage curiosity in general. And so, I think no matter who it is that we ask the questions of, if they don't give us the right answer or don't, um, or they shame us or something,
Mm.
we have to be strong enough to say, no, I'm not going to accept your shame. I am going to remain curious and fight off that negativity, because otherwise, yeah, we'll just stop learning
Right.
basically, and then we'll be stuck.
Let's all go back when we were kids. Let's make believe all three of us were kids. So let's talk about snooping. We all have snooped, and I like to tell a story that there was a certain cabinet. So my mother had the left side and my father had the right side, and he always made a big deal about his thing all the time. So nobody could even touch it, look at it, whatever. But it wasn't locked. That particular section was not locked. So I always snooped to see what the hell was in there. So uh, I found that very interesting. Same with my mother, what she had in that little plastic little piggy, where she put a little change in it. So I always had to look in there and made that little slit in the opening, made it wider to really see what she was putting in there. So how much was in there? Or how much was in the liquor cabinet to smell all the different bottles in there. Not that they had a bar, they had maybe two or three bottles, but just to sniff what was in the bottles, everything that the adults used, I found of interest. I really did. So, what about your snooping? Have you done any snooping, Dr. Chris?
Oh my God, yes. I was snooping all the time. I
See?
loved exploring everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That was very rewarding. Even when it was forbidden, it was even
yeah,
more rewarding
yes,
for me.
yes. It was good. It was
It was
real.
good.
What about you, Robert? Come on, let the cat out of the bag.
Well, I would, I guess we would call it snooping, but to me it was, I guess I didn't have, growing up, I didn't have a lot of people around to snoop on, so maybe that was why I was less of a snooper.
Okay.
Um, but I definitely, if I found a new place to go, or new people, I wanted to meet them and get to know them, and you know, just again fill the curiosity of, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you guys up to? Where's this new place or whatever.
Mm.
But in my personal life, I can't say as a kid that we grew up in a one-bedroom apartment. There was only so much one
You
could
could
hide.
snooping you could do. Well, and another thing, when you went um, to visit your family, your aunts and uncles, the first thing I always did, went to the bathroom to look in the cabinet, and the majority of people had their lipstick in it and their perfume at that time, and just to open up the bottles and sniff everything, or even the toothpaste. It was a journey. It was just something really to explore all of that. Anyway, before we get into curiosity in relationships, we're going to go for a quick break. So stay tuned.
Want to be a guest? People remember? Be on our podcast or TV show. Got a story, a journey, or on a mission? Let's talk. Contact us. at info@kmareducation.org. LifeTalk is listening. Are you ready? Healing doesn't start with a pill. It starts with a question, and we ask the good ones. Read our latest issue at thehealingmindmagazine.com, where mental wellness meets real life. Back to you, Marietta.
Thank you, Robert. Because I had to ask, curiosity isn't nosy, it's human. That's our topic tonight. I have Dr. Chris in the house and Robert Adamo. So we're really going to tell you our secrets too. But let's explore the curiosity in relationships. How can curiosity help us get along better, even with people we disagree with? Oh, Dr. Chris, people we disagree with.
Yeah, people who we disagree with are humans and they have their point of view. It's very interesting to be curious about them. What is their motivation? We need to understand them. So, in relationship, curiosity is very important. It's important to be curious about your partner in life, but also about your colleague at work, but also about be curious about your kids, about your parents. I mean, what does curiosity do in relationship? It deepens understanding. This way, we don't have assumption, or if we have assumption, we ask the person what the person is thinking, and maybe they're wrong assumptions. And we learn how to do active listening. Also, curiosity builds empathy. It encourages emotional connections. It promotes growth. It keeps the relationship dynamic and evolving, and it fosters intimacy. It creates emotional and intellectual closeness. Also, it prevents miscommunication. Very often we have miscommunications. So, it encourages open dialogue, and it creates shared experiences. We can have a mutual exploration with a person, and it will strengthen our connections. It also enhances problem solving. We can do conflict resolution with that person, and that enable collaborative efforts. And it makes you more engaging. It keeps the relationship vibrant and interesting. And that's what I do. I do with my partner, with my husband, with all the people I have around me. I'm very curious about them. I don't have assumption. I'm saying, why? Why do they function like that? And when I find out why, it's like a light bulb comes in my head, and it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my next question is for Robert. So if your partner is acting off and you ask what's going on with you, is that curiosity or control? What do you think, Robert? How would you take that?
Well, it definitely depends on the roles and if it's boyfriend, girlfriend. You know, I've always found it fascinating that women always ask, sometimes within just the first 5 minutes or something of a night out or together or whatever, they always ask, well, what are you thinking right now? Like if the guy's not saying anything for more than a few minutes,
Right.
the woman always tends to, what are you thinking right now? And of course, the guy's probably not thinking of anything because we're guys. So, but, you know, it's, I think curiosity is good up to a point, but it can also, then yes, it can become controlling. Like if you're so curious that you're checking the person's phone to see if they text somebody recently or something, then you have trust issues. That's not curiosity. That's a whole separate problem. And so you have to still know, in my opinion, people's boundaries and um, how far curiosity goes before it becomes evasive or
Right.
invasive. And
Right.
again, it also depends.
It's on the
One
tone.
thing,
It's the tone, if it's genuine or if it's curiosity. So
right.
well, tell me your story or explain yourself. But
Mhm.
even those words, tell me your story, could have an underlining
Right.
of control and so forth. So, it's, if they're
Uh,
saying, depending on the tone, yes, that's true. But sometimes the underneath tone is what really counts. Right, Dr.
Right.
Chris? I'd like to bring you back in.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, when you're saying people sometimes women ask the men, what are you thinking right now? And very often the man says, well, nothing. I'm not thinking about anything. This is interesting in itself for a woman. I actually love that. It's like, really? You were not thinking about anything? Wow. You know, it's I love it. It stimulates my dopamine. Also, I'm excited to think that
All they're thinking about is they're happy to be there with you, or one of two things. They're either happy to be there with you or they got to get away from you. Like, those are the only two things that a guy is really thinking when women ask him that question. They're just happy to be there and they're happy to be there with that person, or they're trying to find a way out from being there. But that's pretty rare. They would have already found that way. So, yeah. But you, when have you ladies ever been asked by a guy, "What are you thinking?"
hmm,
Never,
Probably never.
never.
Right.
I never.
Right.
What am I
Because we
thinking?
don't even think,
Oh,
guys
once,
don't even think to
once.
ask, "What are you once?" Okay.
I was
In
asked once.
1983.
Yeah. 1989. What I
Right.
was thinking, and I wasn't ready to open up. That's right. I was,
Okay.
and it was world. It was war in the car,
Right.
and
Of
you know,
course.
yeah.
Right. So
So,
if a guy asks that question, we're not allowed to ask that question.
well, here's the
But
thing. Here's the
right,
thing. To really understand that particular situation when you got some bad news about your dad and you're feeling very, very sad inside, and the
right,
person recognizes it and keeps poking.
right.
And when you're not
What's
ready
wrong?
to,
What's wrong? What's
exactly, that's
wrong?
right.
Right,
You got to know when to back off. It just,
right.
and that was the situation. But
Mhm.
let's talk about the past 3 years. We had COVID and everything. So, can curiosity really help us through hard times? Who wants to answer that? Who wants to run with it?
I think so, Dr. Chris. I mean, you're the expert in that, through if it could get us through mentally or emotionally. But I think hard times, sometimes you need a plan, but sometimes then you have to be curious of how you're going to reinvent yourself or make a new plan or deal with the new things coming at you. But I mean, I think curiosity again is a good thing as long as it doesn't bleed into somebody else's boundaries too much.
Yeah, let's
So,
just go for a quick break, and then I like for everybody to talk about themselves and how they really are. So let's just go for a break.
real conversation, real people, real change. Subscribe now at Life Talk with Marietta and the Business Champion Show. Let's grow together, one story at a time. Don't miss a thing. Go to lifetalkwithmarietta.com and stay in the loop. New episodes, events, guests, and more. This isn't just content, it's connection. Back to you, Marietta.
Thank you. And because I had to ask, curiosity is nosy, it's human. That's our topic tonight. We have Dr. Chris in the house and Robert Udamo. And I like to share very quickly, and I'd like to start. Or Dr. Chris or Robert, do you want to start with your
Uh,
own
Ladies
story?
first. Dr.
Okay,
Chris, go
Dr.
ahead.
Chris, you first.
oh, really?
Yeah,
So my own curiosity, what it is, what am I curious about?
right, the way you are. Yes.
Who am I? What kind of thinker am I? Well, I am a very, very curious person. I
Mhm.
love thinking about the brain. Why is our brain functioning the way it does? Why is our body functioning the way it does? Why is it that when we're stressed out, we get sick, or we could get sick, our immune system gets weaker? Also, what I really like learning about also is is there anybody else in the universe that is alive? Is there life anywhere else in the universe? And I believe that there is in the trillions of other planets that are around us. I believe there is life somewhere there. But where? How far away from us? What do they live on? Do they need oxygen like us, or do they live on hydrogen? Do they live on anything else? Do they live on radiation? Like in Chernobyl, there are bacteria that gets energy from radiation. What about Mars? What's going on in those lava tubes in Mars? I think about all those. And what will Earth be like in 10 years? Are there going to be autonomous cars everywhere? Are there going to be drone robots everywhere in my kitchen? Are there going to be like DNA repair treatments for everything? Hopefully there won't be any more chemotherapy, this archaic chemotherapy against cancer with drugs that destroy us. And maybe there'll be just DNA repair. So I'm curious about everything. I read so much about everything. And that's me.
That's your 11th book. That
Yeah.
makes a fantastic book, Dr. Chris.
Oh, that's a good idea. Good
I'm not
idea,
kidding. I'm
Mariette.
dead serious. You're welcome. I mean it. So,
Really?
Robert, should I go ahead before you, or you want to go?
I'm. It's up to you. You're the host.
Well, I've always been someone who loved coming up with ideas. So my brain doesn't sit still. I get curious about everything. So, not just about what, but the why. Why do people act the way they do? What makes them tick? And I feel very strongly about that. I have to know how they tick. I have to understand people I'm in contact with, or even just very short encounters. Very quickly, my brain assesses them right away. It's it's just that's how I am. So, what happens behind the scenes in industries, most of us never think twice about. I love learning about people, about behavior, about life. If it has a story, I'm interested, unless it's sports, then not so much. So that's what Because I Had to Ask is about. It's not about having all the answers, it's about asking the questions that make us feel more connected, more awake, more human. But I love it. My brain is constantly working. I mean, overtime, everything. It just, many times it doesn't even shut up when I'm in bed. It doesn't shut up. So I have to have a firm talk with it, and then it shuts up. So Robert, it's your turn.
Fantastic. I've been curious since I was young, as all of us have, and I used some of that curiosity to learn how to work on computers back in the 80s, the early 80s, before computers were really a thing in every household and stuff. And then as I grew up and as the 90s came around and the 2000s when the internet first started, I was very curious about that. And that, along with luckily having a background in basic computer programming, that's what pretty much led me to my own business of being a internet marketer and web designer and everything was my curiosity. So I definitely have to thank it for giving me that. And then after that got settled, I did start to ask a lot of questions, just like Dr. Chris. Are we the only ones floating on this rock out here in the middle of space? And where else could, other beings be, or how does life work in general? Why, at least in our solar system for upright humans, we're the only ones that we know about. And even on our own planet, out of all the species, there's not many that are bipedal like us and have hands like us and a brain like ours. And it's those things, and through just talking and having this discussion of curiosity, that's what actually drove humans to become as technically sophisticated as we are, is curiosity. And being working at home and developing websites, I usually have a documentary of some kind going on in the background, because it's not something you have to focus on like a TV show where you have to be listening and paying attention to everything. But it just feeds me information about the universe and about our, our history, human history, and everything. And one of the things that I think we humans were very curious about early on is, where does the sun come from? And just asking that question is possibly what led us to explore and try to catch the sun, just like we try to catch nowadays. We want to get to the edge of the rainbow, but we know you can never get to the edge of the rainbow because it keeps moving as you move. But for, eons, it was, trying to get to the end of the rainbow, but you can't get there, and you can't catch the sun either because of how our solar system and our universe works. But I think early man had that curiosity and ventured as east as they could to try to catch the sun rising, to see where is the sun coming from. And then, of course, they ran into other problems like oceans and mountains and things that made it difficult for them to cross or get over. But through human ingenuity and, again, curiosity, we built boats and we built other devices and things to help us along, and tamed animals to get us over the mountains and all these things. So to me, curiosity is the quintessential part of human development, not only in our individual and daily lives, but through our hundreds of thousands of years of existence. So that's my story.
I love that. I remember a long, long time ago, we had a brief conversation and I was listening to you the way you just explained that. I remember that. I don't know when we did it, but I remember once you talked about that. That could make a nice podcast series.
Well, I'm working on a book of some sort, but
yes, I love it.
again, trying to tackle where did we come from and why do we exist is just a small little topic that, been looking for answers for, millennia. But I'm going to get them all. I'm going to figure it all out with me and ChatGPT and, help from great people like yourself that give me insight. Also, Dr. Chris, I actually did purchase your book. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I am going to be reading your UFO book because I recently did see that in your on your Amazon.
Dr. Chris's book.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Robert. That was really great. So let's move on to curiosity and aging. And we're told we have figured life out. Now, that doesn't come from me. Somebody that says I have figured life out, I would look at them and say, "Oh, you have?" Because there's still so many so many things we don't know, but we have an idea what life is about. But if we stop wondering, we stop growing. So, Dr. Chris, please, do older adults really lose curiosity?
They could. Some of them do. It could correlate with depression. Some older adults become depressed and then they lose curiosity. But there are some exercises to do to get younger or to not age as much and keep your sense of wonder. And I think keeping the sense of wonder keeps people young. So, for example, you can keep a question journal, write down anything that makes you wonder throughout the day, and expose yourself to novelty, like take a different route to work or to go to the grocery store. Listen to podcasts or radio programs or YouTube videos that are outside of your usual interests. Surround yourself with curious people. Embrace the idea of being a beginner. Say to yourself, I'm just exploring. I'm not good at what I'm doing right now because I'm just exploring. And allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to look weak and don't be afraid of failure. Take intellectual risks. Also, try to not multitask under stress. A lot of people multitask under stress, and there is no room for curiosity anymore because they try to achieve everything they need to achieve during the day. So make room for curiosity. Get some time off, some time to reflect. And that will keep you young as there's some 90 something years old that I know that are have still have their wonder and they keep young. They are young at heart. And I want to be like this when I get older.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Last night, I started watching a movie with Robert De Niro, and it's all about senior internship. I maybe watched half an hour and then I shut it off because I was tired. But it's all about being in with young people in their early 30s. And of course, he's retired. He's 70 to be exact in the movie. And he comes with a suit and tie and with his wisdom and everything. And that's what the whole story is about. And I can't wait to look at it again. But I was just really, my brain was tired last night. So I love the idea. Senior internship. I like that. That really turns me on mentally. It really, really does. So, this is just new. It's just 24 hours. I have to think about it a little more. And I don't know how much I would love to test it. I would love to call up a company and just ask and just have a conversation if they don't hang up ahead of time. So, but what do you think about that?
Well, I do know somebody that they've developed programs for senior centers and memory care centers and like active living homes. And so within those homes that this person's involved with, they have groups where the seniors, like a daycare center will come and drop off 10 kids, and they'll all be in the rec room with the seniors, and the seniors get to interact with the small children. And then they also have older, 10, 12-year-olds and teenagers, and then young adults. And so they have different programs for seniors to interact with people of all the different generations, and it's called like generational something. So it is a thing out there, and definitely it helps because it helps the adults, you play with the kids again and feel young again and have that interaction that they may not have had in a long time with the young child. And then as it gets older, again, you get kids in the 7 to 10 age that come in and ask a lot of questions and want to learn how to play chess from some guy who's playing chess for 50 years, and he gets to pass down his knowledge of how to play and strategies. And so he feels good that he's passing down that information, and the young kid is happy to be learning from, this very wise and older person and stuff like that. And so there's definitely, a need and what for it, as well as it helps everybody involved.
This particular movie, and I think it's called Intern, but it's with Robert De Niro. He is actually going. He applied for this internship at a company. He's going into the company every single day.
Gotcha.
Everything he's
Interesting.
gone.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't finished, again, only 20 minutes
Mm,
into it, and but it's that's what it's all about. That he applied
mm,
for this internship and he was hired, and it's all about the interaction and how the younger generation, how they gravitate to him, and it's. But I just love the idea, so I have to work with the idea a little bit. Anyway, let's move on. Thank you, Robert, for that. Curiosity and creativity. What does curiosity have to do with being creative, Dr. Chris?
It's got everything to do with creativity, because to create something, we need to be curious about new ways of creating. So if you want to create a new book, or if you want to create a new painting, you've got to be very curious of how to create. What are the new ways? What can you try that is different? A lot of inventions have been done with creativity, with exploring new things. We didn't know that those would work, and yet they were successful. So creativity is just the key for a lot of new inventions too. Yeah.
Okay. And what about if someone says, but I'm not a creative person, Robert? What would you say to them?
Well, I think we all have to find our niche or the way that our brain works because I've dealt with this most of my life. I wouldn't consider myself necessarily creative in the sense like artwork. Like I can't draw very well. I can't foresee, oh, I need to put a line here and another line here with this shadow underneath, and then in 5 minutes that's going to be the bridge of the eye or something. Like I can't see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
My brother, on the other hand, who inherited all my father's artistic ability, this guy could carve a battle scene in the leg of a wooden table while you're eating dinner. Like, and you wouldn't even know. And next thing you know, you look and you see this intricately carved whole scene, and the guy is amazing. So for me, there's definitely something in there about the wiring. But then if you give me a computer and a graphics program and a website, well, now I can apply some artisticness, but I still would never consider myself like an artist or a graphic artist. That's some by other people's means, but that's why I stick more on the technical end with the marketing and stuff like that. But it to me, it doesn't the link, but I'm still curious about things, but it doesn't bleed over into the creative um, way, at least for art and stuff. It's different. I grew up being, playing the drums and doing a little bit of music, and so I guess I have some creativity there, but it's mostly I've got to have a computer or I'll think of ideas, but they're all big ideas like how to build a self-sustaining electrical farm, that produces its own electricity, clean water, and everything. Yeah, but I can't go make that. Okay, I can think about it, I can be curious about it, but I don't have an engineering degree and $10 million to go build it. So that's where, unfortunately, my creativity it's a lot bigger than my my budget at this time.
Mhm.
Yeah, but sometimes when you're curious about something, you can discover new ways of doing things, new ways of doing art that have not been done before. Just by
Mhm.
if we don't have any money and we think about something different as that is completely new, and I think the key is to be curious and to be open to new ways, whatever new ways they are. Just be welcome my brain. Can you think about something different?
Right.
And I think we could create a lot of good stuff this way.
You know,
Absolutely.
being creative, we must think out of the box. We must. And I had a situation here last night. We had a couple come by, they're painters. What we really need is people that are in the drywall business that can repair a 30-foot seam. I have my ceiling here is about 15 to 18 foot high. So the seam needs to be repaired, uh, way up on top. So he didn't speak English. She did all the talking. And it must have confused the heck out of her that the place was, I live here. I have furniture here. Yes. And I could tell just the way she looked at things and hardly looked at things. And he didn't look at all. And he does all the work, but she does all the talking. She's really the main person there, and just the way they talk, just the way they went about things. I dislike them very, very much because nobody comes by at 8 o'clock to do an estimate, but I did it for the landlady here. I didn't want to shut it down. The guy today that came by, he walked in friendly. He's done drywall before. He looked at the ceiling. He went, "Oh, this, you don't need to paint this. Just, and yeah, I can do this and that and this." And that's because they when you work with drywall, you're not afraid of it. Plus, he doesn't mind getting on the ladder. There are other people, they're painters, but they don't necessarily like to get on ladders too. So we got to pick the right people here. But this woman, I picked it up last night. She was my stuff, my the furnishings. It bothered her in her thinking. I could tell that, and I was pissed off at her anyway that they came that late. But anyway, the person today, boy, they came, looked at it. It was nothing was a problem. Nothing a problem. Yeah, we'll give you an estimate. So it's and I can understand that too. They're rigid in their thinking. The first couple, very rigid in their thinking. Oh, if it's not empty, oh yeah, we paint. We've done places, but they were empty. Yeah, so can't you think? So a lot of people say in real estate that a lot of people that want to buy a house and the house is furnished, they can't really see themselves. They don't have that capability to see themselves. Their furnishings and the way they want to furnish it, they can't see that. They don't have that vision. I do. I do. Now, a lot of people don't. Dr. Chris, I'd like to bring you in. What do you think?
So what do you mean? So,
in other words, when you work in a service, you provide a service. So whether the house is furnished or not furnished, so it's a distraction. It was a distraction for her to see through it and be flexible enough. Everything was a big deal to her. Like compared to the man that came today, he had an open mind. The furniture didn't no bother, and but he has worked with us too, getting up on the ladder, repairing it.
Yeah.
I
think I think it's important to be open to the situation that we're walking in, to try to understand what the problem is.
He wasn't trying.
Be curious.
No. The first thing, it's up there. Okay, how much money? I know her anyway. But what I'm saying, this is also when people buy homes. If it's still furnished, they have a hard time picturing themselves in that home versus when it's empty. I don't have a problem with that. I can walk into a furnished home and I can see myself in there with my furniture. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's also more imagination. You have a good imagination, so you can imagine yourself there. Some people are not as imaginative, and I think imagination is a whole. It's linked to curiosity, but I think it's a whole separate thing. And
yes, I love it. Roberts, right. Yes.
And kids are very imaginative. They have an imaginary friend, and they can keep themselves entertained for hours. But as we get older, we are definitely discouraged less and less to be, you don't imagine things, you just know things. Like Dr. Chris was saying in the beginning, that's once we get to an adult age, our brain is already kind of locked in with the things we know. And so it sounds like
Mhm.
the first couple, all they know is how to paint empty rooms.
Yes,
So that
yes.
anything else outside of that, they can't even imagine it.
Right, right. I
So
said, you do have equipment, you have a scaffold. So she said, I wouldn't be able to fit a scaffold in here. I said, we
right.
can move the furniture. We can move the furniture can be moved. No, they don't want to do that. They don't want to get up on the ladder, and he doesn't have want to crawl, to the other
Well,
side,
yeah,
you know?
there might be good reasons for that,
Yeah,
but
right.
it doesn't sound like they're
Very
your
interesting.
people.
No,
So,
not at all. But you just brought up a very interesting point, the imagination. That will be two shows almost, you know?
mhm.
And let me do the last one, curiosity and fear. So why do people stop being curious when they're afraid? Well, Dr.
Hmm.
Chris, we can't be curious and afraid at the same time. Or can we?
We can. We can actually be curious about the fear. So
Hmm.
what is this fear about? Let's see where it comes from. Is it coming from childhood? What happened in our childhood? Is it coming from a past experience? So by being curious about the fear itself, by making friends with the fear itself, it will solve the problem, and then and then you will get the dopamine surge, uh, because you've learned something. You've learned how to overcome the fear by understanding it. And that's a fascinating process. I mean, every emotion, it's really important to be curious about the emotion, especially when it's a negative emotion. And that's the way to get over it, because otherwise, if you stay away from the fear, if you stay away from whatever it is you're afraid of, you will not be able to overcome it. You will be more and more paralyzed because you won't know how to handle yourself, and that's not going to be a very good answer. So get curious about your fear.
Oh, I've never tried that. I'm just listening to all of this. So when I'm fearful, I don't ask good questions. I don't ask any questions, but maybe I should start doing that. I've never done that. Have you done that,
Maybe.
Robert?
I guess, not to contradict the good doctor here, because of
Right. I
course
don't want, no,
we
right.
have,
Mhm.
that's definitely one side of it. But I guess for me, early years, yes, you curiosity and you learn your fears. Like we learn that fire is both dangerous, but also could cook your food and keep you healthy if you know how to control the fire. And
Mm,
so we learn to control our fears and learn when to be fearful of fire, like when the garbage can is on fire and it's spreading
mhm.
through the house, or when the stove is on fire and it's just there
Yes.
and it's fine. But
That,
I think in moments of stress or distress, like you get into a car accident or there's some tragic thing happens, to me at least, our brains are reliant on what we know from the past can help us,
mhm,
and not necessarily, this isn't necessarily the time for exploration and questioning things. It's a time for relying on, our past history and our knowledge of how to get out of the situation, or make that less painful or better or whatever. So again, not to really contradict, but sure there might be sometimes, but I guess in an emergency crisis situation, to me, that's the last time. I I don't want any questions. I only want
Same here.
answers.
Same here. I got to tell you guys something. Yesterday, I heard the smoke alarm go off twice. A very short, maybe 4, 5, 6 beats the first time. So I figured, oh, it was, it was recognized somehow. And then it starts up again. And I said, maybe my landlord is not home. So I started panicking. So, and when I get fear, I just can't ask any questions. So I stopped what I was doing. I was already in my office, so I went in the living room and then I texted, if she was home, or she said, yes, I did hear it. I was in the shower. So I said, just let me know this week when you're not home, in case that alarm goes off again, so that I need to react to it,
Right.
because sometimes she's not at home, and if it goes off the middle of the night, so should I say,
No.
or should I get a bucket of water and storm through
Right.
the door? You know?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but I know, and I said, wait a minute. So while I was in this mindset, I said, what's the emergency number? 211, and I had to ask chat. So 911. So I had forgotten at that
Yeah.
moment. I forgot even the
Mm-hmm.
number 911. I did.
Wow.
So because I'm ready to act. For me,
Right.
there's okay. The alarm goes off. I need to act.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's just really, really amazing. Anyway, folks, we're out of time. So that's it for today's episode on Because I Had to Ask. We're glad you
Yeah.
learned with us, not for answers, but for better questions. Yeah, we're working on it. Okay. If something we said made you think, smile, or even shift a little, take that with you and maybe pass it on. Want to keep the conversation going? Visit us at lifetalkwithmarietta.com. That's where you'll find new episodes, updates, and everything in between. And if you have a story to share or want to be a guest on our podcast or TV show, we would love to hear from you. Email us at info@kmareducation.org. That's KMAR education.org. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channels at The Business Champion Show and at Life Talk with Marietta, because around here, asking isn't nosy, it's human. So thank you, Dr. Chris, for being
Thank
with
you.
us tonight. Robert Adamo, thank you. And until next night, until next time, stay curious. I'm Marietta Cameron.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mariette.
Thank
Take
you,
care. Thank
Mariette.
you,
Until
Dr.
next